Good morning, guys. Happy Friday. Okay, so we're actually not going to talk about Afghanistan at this point because God knows my head is spinning from all of that here yesterday. So I want to talk about the other thing, like I said yesterday, that's a bigger worry, and that is more on the inflationary side. And basically, what affects us more than anything else is our money, okay, and the economy and what's going to happen to the United States. So, at 10 o'clock this morning, my favorite moron in finance, Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, is going to come out and talk about monetary policy and what we're going to do. And it's going to be very interesting to see if he listens to all the Fed chairmen, okay, or if he goes off on a tangent himself. All the other Fed chairmen are saying that we need to start tapering, in other words, not buying back all these bonds like crazy that the government's been doing, okay? Powell seems to be more concerned about Delta than he is about inflation. And you, me, the lamppost, everybody else is a lot more concerned about inflation because Delta is something that we can control by our actions, okay? If you don't want to go out in public, you don't have to go out in public. But inflation is not something that you, me, or anybody else can control. We have no choice when we go into the grocery store, and if they want $2.99 a pound for tomatoes, grocery stores don't negotiate on prices. Okay, so that's the one that affects us. Now, the market obviously is kind of always waiting for what the Fed chairman's going to say. I mean, that's gone back throughout forever, okay? But so the big questions that everybody needs to be watching for your wallet, for your money, is are we going to start tapering in September like the rest of the Fed chairs want, or are we going to delay it? Okay. Does the Fed see Delta or inflation as the bigger concern? And then most importantly, what is the central bank's post-pandemic policy going to look like? If they're not going to taper in September, when are they going to taper? Okay. The thing is this, we don't have to worry about whether or not the Fed's going to make a mistake in the morning here at 10 o'clock. What we have to worry about is how we're going to get out of the mistakes they've already made, okay? Now, we already know we've got inflation like crazy. Food, we also saw lumber, car prices, housing, we've talked about that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of you have asked me in emails about where I said, pay off your bills, pay off your bills, pay off your bills. What happens if we go into a hyperinflationary type scenario? Okay, and I'm going to give you this. You've got to think past here. This is what a lot of people don't see. Yes, if you have $100,000 that you owe on your mortgage, and we go into a hyperinflationary scenario, you're still going to owe $100,000 on your mortgage. That's not going to change, okay? And if you think about when you buy a house and take out a 30-year mortgage, I mean, you buy a house when you're 35 and your last payment's when you're 65, okay, if you really want to put it into play there and think about that, if you just pay your mortgage, you know what you make at 35. Chances are, by the time you get into your peak earning years, your 40s and 50s, you're going to be making more, but you're still paying based on what you could afford when you were in your 30s. All right, so it's the same concept here. You hope you're making more money. You should be making more money later on in life when you're still paying a debt that you took out at old numbers. Well, the same goes to say if we go into a hyperinflationary scenario. Let's say that we're like Venezuela and all of a sudden they've got to add zeros to all the dollar bills, okay? Not a big deal. Now a dollar is really $100. $100 is really $10,000, okay, like Venezuela, all right? So now you go, oh, cool. You know what? I can just pay off, I can just ride this out and pay off my mortgage. If $100 now is going to be $10,000 5 years from now, I can just go chink, 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 chink and pay off my mortgage. Yes, you can. Here's the problem. This is what you have to understand. And y'all know this never happens. Do your wages keep up with inflation? No, they never have. Do you honestly think your wages are going to keep up with hyperinflation? Hell no. Okay. So yeah, that $100 bill that could feasibly be worth $10,000 is great. But the problem is they're not going to add 2 zeros to the back of your paycheck too. So again, your spending power is going to be significantly less. This is why I'm telling everybody about wealth preservation. Okay. There's that. The other point in this scenario of, gee, if $100 is worth $10,000, what does a loaf of bread cost? Loaf of bread costs you $4 or $5 right now. I mean, you buy the cheap stuff, the white bread that's like eating air. Maybe you get that for $2 a loaf or whatever it is. But let's say now that the $100 bill that's worth $10,000, well, okay, now are we adding 2 zeros to the loaf of bread? Okay, the loaf of bread is now, instead of $5, the loaf of bread is $500. Well, if your paycheck didn't go from $30,000 a year to $300,000 a year, let's say it went to $150,000, okay? From 30 to 150, that's more likely. I mean, y'all know Social Security, inflation's up. We're at the highest inflation right now since 1983, okay? I guarantee what is it, 6% or something like that we're running. I know our paychecks haven't gone up 6% this year so far. So, let's just say for the sake of argument that you get half, that you get 3%. Well, it's great. Now you've got $150,000, but that loaf of bread that cost you $500 now literally costs you twice as much more as it did before. So does your mortgage payment. It's your spending power. Dollars are just numbers. That's it. Okay. It's what you can buy with the dollars. If a millionaire in the 1980s was a lot of money. A millionaire now could be 5 or 6 people in your neighborhood who just go to work every day. Okay. It's not, I'll use this one. Okay. Think of sports stars, okay? And you see all the stories, and I don't follow sports that much, so my numbers aren't going to be that much accurate anymore. But I remember when Alex Rodriguez, who I don't even think's playing baseball anymore, signed some $20 million contract or whatever, and it was like, oh my God. Then there was the quarterback for Kansas City, who was the highest paid guy, signed like a $50 million contract. And you think about the money. But go back to the 1970s, let's say, and your best baseball players were making $100 and some odd thousand. Go back a little bit further in time, and the guys who were playing pro ball had jobs in the winter, regular jobs. Okay, this was it. Why do you think you have all these athletes, the Charles Barkleys of the world or whatever it is, that do play-by-play for ESPN or whoever it is? Because they didn't make these ungodly amounts of money that the athletes make now. That's what you're going to see, the same thing as inflation. Okay. So pay attention to what happens at 10 o'clock this morning. What we want to see is the Feds say they're going to start tapering in September. That's what we want to see. If we see that, okay, that should slow down inflation. That's also going to cause the market to drop. If the Fed says we're not starting tapering, that's going to see inflation keep going up, but you'll also see the market keep going up. I know a lot of you guys have asked me about this today. I just kind of wanted to tell you what's going on. Have a good Friday morning, guys. Let's hope to God there isn't any more news out of Afghanistan today. Let's just hope we get people out of Afghanistan and not news out of Afghanistan. Have a good one. Pinball out.